Hello everyone, Paul here. Just a heads up regarding this week's episode. The audio might sound a little bit different than normal as we had a different setup this time, but hopefully you enjoy the episode anyway, regardless. So here we go.
Hi, I'm Sophie,
Hi, I'm Paul,
and we are SP Film Viewers.
and today we are doing something very different as we have a special guest joining us on this episode. He is a Canadian filmmaker and co founder of Time to Kill Media. Warm welcome to Nick Ferwerda. I hope I'm saying that right.
Close enough. You're actually quite good. Most people get it much worse than that. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
So how do you pronounce it then? Is it Ferwerda or how?
Yeah, that's it actually for Werda. It's
What?
Dutch.
Oh right, okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's cool. So how are things in Canada with these troubling times that we're in at the moment? Is it all going or bad or good or what's the crack?
It's interesting. I mean, I haven't been at my office in like 3 months, so that's a little rough. I was working from home for a while, but obviously there's not a lot of work to really be done right now since we can't be on set.
Mm.
So I'm just kind of sitting pretty at home and watching a lot of movies and trying to at least occupy my time a little bit, but more so bored than anything. If anything.
Right, yeah, we're lucky enough to be able to sort of work from home with the jobs that we do. I'm a animator, and Sophie works in accounting, but she can do her work from the on the laptop.
Yeah, so we're quite lucky in that sense. So we don't really seem to have the kind of probably feel like we're twiddling our thumbs as much, do we? But I think it is a bit of a scary.
Situation that
Yeah.
we're in, yeah. But anyway, let's not
Yeah.
go on that too much. Yeah, I mean, I'd absolutely love to be sat and yes, with spare time just watching films like you. But yeah,
Yeah, watching a lot of things that have been on my list for years now that I've really never gotten the opportunity to, or if I've been putting off. So
yeah,
watching lots of like foreign films and
mhm,
like films from the 70s, the 80s, and it's really cool. Things that I've really wanted
yeah.
to actually watch for a while, but have just never had the opportunity. So I'm kind of trying to take advantage of it as much as I can, given the circumstances.
Yeah, great stuff. Yeah, great stuff.
I think that sounds brilliant, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah,
I think that's something that you've got a list, haven't you?
yeah. Oh, yeah. I've got a stockpile of films on my shelf. It's just like, oh yeah, it's a meaning to get to, and it's kind of just finding the time sometimes.
Well, I barely even scratched the surface, even though I've been home for like 2 months. I've barely even scratched the surface of the
Yeah,
list. There's so many on it
yeah.
still.
So little time to watch more.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll start with going into your the short film that we've watched. It was on Amazon Prime, the Family Game Night.
Yeah, yeah. So, Family Game Night was a really fun one. It was actually it's not technically my directorial debut, but I was kind of treating it as my directorial debut, just because it was probably the most like properly funded and professional film I had ever done before, like prior to that. So it's a short horror comedy film that I wrote or I co-wrote, I guess, and kind of came up with the concept for with our writer John Cohen, who's actually based in the States. Um, we actually were writing a TV series or a web series with him, which we're still actually working on, but we kind of really loved him as a writer, so we wanted to. I pitched him this idea for Family Game Night, and he came on and we wrote it and we filmed it at this point just under 2 years ago, I'd say, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we spent some time in post production, and as of like 3-4 months ago, it's been available on Amazon Prime. Before that, it was playing festivals all around the world.
It's great. Yeah. As you for the festival stuff, has there been much response from it, or?
Yeah, we had a very successful festival run. Actually, we played a bunch of festivals in the States, a bunch in Canada. We played one in the UK. I can't remember where in the UK. Fortunately, none of us were able to get out for that one. Um, but yeah, no, we had a great response. We actually took home a couple awards. One for best short comedy film in festival, and then our lead actor Mark Brombacher, he took a Best Actor in Festival from a local festival here in Toronto, or not in Toronto actually, just a couple hours outside of Toronto, called Shockstock, which is a very recognizable horror film festival here in Canada.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the from the opening shot that we see in the thing. That's quite like a good setup for almost like a horror type scenario. When you see outside the house, is kind of gives you a good vibe straight away. I kind of like, oh yeah.
It was the lighting, I thought, that of the shot itself. You could see like the eeriness
Yeah,
already
yeah.
with the lighting and
Same
everything like
thing.
that, and you knew there was something going on.
We tried really hard to keep it kind of just street lighting for the outside, and like the porch lighting. We did want to have it feel quite grim, but as we kind of like brought it inside a little bit more, we really wanted to make it seem a lot brighter, because the goal was at first to really make it seem like this very middle class suburban family. Like nothing was supposed to be wrong with them.
Yeah.
Like there shouldn't be any tell really that makes them stand out from any other middle class suburban family with a couple of kids. So that was kind of the goal, is we wanted to start really eerie, and then in the first actual scene, really bring it back and kind of make it a little bit more comforting, and kind of just show the relationship of this family a little bit before we actually got to the horror side of things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, I was a little bit like when Paul said, "Oh, we're going to watch this horror thing," and I'm like,
Yeah, because Sophie's not very into horror films. I said, "Don't worry," because I checked out firstly, and then said, "Oh, you'll be fine. There's nothing too untoward with this one. It's kind of a."
But when I saw that opening shot, I was like, "Are you sure?"
Yeah. It was a fun one, just because even though it is a horror comedy, I've always kind of thought it is more of a like dark comedy, if anything, just that's a little bit spooky. I was never planning to do any big jump scares or anything with it. We really just wanted to keep it grounded and make it seem just very relatable to a lot of people, I think. And then instantly take that away with like demonic sacrifice and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I feel like at the end of it, that could. Would you feel like it could be developed into like more episodic thing, or a full length feature based on the thing? Because I kind of got that way that it could take on like another year's past, and you see how they've grown, or they keep doing it, and something goes wrong, or something like I get that sort of sense from watching the end of that short.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because we're actually in development to make a feature film.
All right.
Yeah. So I can't talk about that one very much, because there's still not a lot of detail, but that is the end goal, is to actually make it more of a feature film style thing, with the dad actually being the main character. And instead of it being more family focused, it's going to be more about his career and his life, and then just having all of these kind of secondary stories with like the daughter and her school life, and the little kid going to sleepovers and also being involved in this, and the dad just being like an office man and having to do all these kind of ridiculous things, and sacrifice people to the devil to actually maintain like his work life balance. So it's interesting, but like the goal is to eventually make it a feature film. There's not really a timeline for that one yet, but that is kind of what we're hoping to eventually. Fingers crossed, anyways.
Yeah, fingers crossed for you. Yeah, that sounds exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, so Family Game Night was definitely a really fun project as well, and we want to get a lot of the people back for the feature. At the very least, Mark Brombacher, who is the guy who played the dad, he's actually kind of spearheading the project. He's a co-writer on it this time, and he's also going to be probably playing the dad again. And then we're kind of just going from there and seeing what we can do with it.
Excellent stuff. Yeah. So I understand that you've got some other projects in the pipeline as well. You mentioned there was an animation feature that you were working on.
Yeah, it's animation short film. It's called Multicolored Blood, and we're in like mid stages of production with that. We've animated about half of it, and we're starting to look at sound design and bringing on some voice actors as well, to actually finish the project off. It's a really cool story as well. I've always kind of wanted to do something along the psychedelic horror side of things, just very colorful and very bright, and just using all these colors that you really don't have the opportunity to use in like actual physical film a lot of the time. Unless you're doing something like Mandy or that is kind of really funky. So I kind of took actually the current world situation as an opportunity to start working on something like that. So I'm actually working with an animator from Poland on that project, and we're not really sure when it's going to be finished, but we're aiming to have a first draft of the actual animation done probably by end of July. Um, and then on top of that, I'm doing a short drama right now as well, called Disconnected, and we're doing that completely remotely. Also, given the state of the world right now, so yeah, it's that one. That one's actually something I'm very excited for, because I've been given the opportunity to work with a lot of actors from all around the world on this project. Again, something I wouldn't really have the opportunity to do before this. So our lead, he's from Oslo, and our female lead, she is from Spain. So it's cool. Like we get to kind of bring all these people together who have never really had the opportunity to work together, and it's going to be completely over a digital format. So everything's going to be filmed online and by the actors themselves, and I'm going to be directing via like webcam, and
That sounds complicated.
it's very complicated. Yeah, it's a lot of technical stuff that we've been trying to figure out. So that we're hoping to get into production in the next couple of weeks, actually.
Excellent. Yeah. Wow. That sounds. I wouldn't want to be doing anything like that. Trying to manage all those different people. How many actors did you say there were? Like.
There's actually only, for this project, there's only 2 actors, but we're using this short as more of a test project, to eventually, hopefully, do something with more of a feature length along the same kind of timeline, with like the online and digital formats, depending on how long the state of the world stays like this.
Yeah.
Definitely. That's admirable, really, to say that you're wanting to do something like that. And with the technology that we have, it's brilliant to be able to get that together and work, really. It's showing that we can actually adapt in any situation we get
thrown at.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really cool. It's a whole new world for me. I'm not the most tech savvy in terms of computers and everything, so luckily I have some people helping me with this one, because I would not be able to do it by myself. That's for sure. I'm lost already. So hopefully, like, luckily, I have all these people kind of helping me, and helping me spearhead this project, so we can actually make it possible and almost make it seem like an actual film that you would see in the theaters and everything. So, although like the way it's filmed is obviously entirely different. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting project to see how it kind of plays out, because I'm curious myself. I'm not totally sure yet, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah, no, very good. Yeah, I hope to see that when it comes into fruition. So, just going back to the animation project you were mentioning before, is that like a 2D one or a 3D iteration?
Yeah, we're doing 2D for this one. We want it to feel quite hand drawn, actually. There's lots of reds and lots of oranges and lots of purples, and yeah, there's the 2D animation style, that kind of that we do want to play around with. I've always been really interested with 2D animation myself. I think it can be pretty spooky, actually, if done properly. So yeah, we're gonna do 2D with this one, and if it plays out well, then I might consider doing more of a 3D project with this same animator, because we have a couple of things that are very suitable for animation that I would love to film physically, but obviously right now not possible, and they require a lot of budgets. And I just love how free, as a director, I feel doing animation. Like, nothing's impossible, which is
I know exactly what I mean with the projects we do. It's kind of like opens up to so many possibilities you can do with, you can break rules and boundaries that you couldn't possibly do with real life live action work. So, and I also agree that 2D is all. I personally think that 2D is always the best way to express yourself more. You seem with 3D, I tend to see things visual. You know, you can easily mess up 3D how it looks, but 2D, there's always something, even if it's not perfect, it works in its own right. If that makes sense.
yeah. No, for sure. It definitely does. And I'm slowly learning that. Like, this is my first attempt at actually directing animation, so it's a whole new ball game for me. Like, I've never really had the opportunity to do this sort of art form before. So I'm really excited to explore it. It's something that I've always been very intrigued by, and I personally love animation. So I'm really excited to continue to do this and really be able to experiment with visuals, but also sound and yeah, the actual voice acting as well. Again, something I've never really directed, but I'm very, very excited to try because it's always been a huge interest of mine. So yeah, it's no better time, I guess.
No, exactly. You know, I completely understand it can take a very, very long time from experience of my own, how long it takes to do an animation. So, yeah, just persevere through it, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like the lots of learning, lots of ups and downs for sure. But the way that it's kind of been going so far, I am very excited. The visuals look really cool, and even though I can't really share any of those visuals just yet, I'm hoping July August comes around and I at least have some stills I can show because that's something I'm very, very much looking forward to do and to show off. Yeah, it's a medium that I'm very intrigued by and something I can definitely see myself doing more down the line, depending on how this project goes. I think.
That sounds brilliant. I think it's actually, I've noticed as well, animation has become more of a bigger hit, even like in your music videos lately, because of the circumstances.
Mhm.
It is a case of how can we get still new product information
songs,
out
yeah.
into the world, and it is like that has actually ramped up, and it's lovely to see because sometimes I feel like it is a bit of a thing where it is only like your Disney Pixar kind of things. It's not as, and it's all this different artwork, and it's exciting to watch them actually sometimes maybe a video that you just got a singer.
Just walking around and all that stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
do a lot more with animation, basically. Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, possibilities really are endless, and I'm learning that very quickly. There. I was talking to the animator, and I was like, I want to do this, and then I kind of told myself like, no, I can't really do that. That's probably not possible with the budget that we have. And then he's like, no, this is animation. We can pretty much do whatever you want, which is really cool. Yeah, it's cool being able to work with more freedom and especially now, I've been seeing a lot of TV shows and like certain mediums starting to take up animation more as well, like what you mentioned with music videos. Um, and even TV shows. I can't remember the show, but I was reading something on the CW actually converted their final season of a live action show to animation, just because of the current state of the world and COVID and everything, um, which is really cool. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of that as time progresses, and depending on how we kind of build off of what we've been dealing with. So I think it's really cool, and yeah, again, that's why I'm very, very interested in actually gaining experience with animation. It's going to be a fun one.
Well, I look forward to seeing that in the future, hopefully.
I hopefully me too. Yeah, I'll definitely pass along stills as they come out, because I'm very much looking forward to share that one.
Okay, right. So we'll jump straight into the review of the Art of Self Defense, which is a film that I asked you about, like what one of your favourite films is, and we went with that because me and Sophie haven't seen it. It's normally Sophie who hasn't seen a film that I've seen, but for this time we thought we'd do something different and see what this film's all about.
Yeah, I mean, art of self-defense, it's a really interesting one. If you know, I don't convince you to watch it after this. I don't know what else will, because it's very it's very strange to say the least. I don't even really know what genre to consider it. I even think it's more like dark comedy, black humor, kind of like.
Yeah, I get that vibe about it. I think that's what it comes across as. I think.
Yeah, it's cool because it touches on really, really serious topics, and the theme as well. It's not just a funny haha sort of movie. It's very, trying to take itself seriously in the weirdest way. And there's so many ups and downs in it as well that kind of make you feel that way, and it really does make you feel uncomfortable as well. The biggest theme that I noticed throughout the movie was it really touches a lot on toxic masculinity, and
Yeah.
yeah, really just showing these really awful dynamics between men and women at this not just at this like karate studio, which is where most of the movie takes place, but just in general and in their lives, and how very toxic people can make you think of yourself in a certain light or in a certain way, when obviously that's not true, or kind of make you feel beneath other people, which is something this movie kind of does really well, in showing that in a very uncomfortable way.
Yeah,
It definitely comes across that way in certain things because
quite intense, isn't it? It's
yeah, there's especially with I know there's very limited musical score, but there's certain key moments within the film which kind of makes that builds up tension up with the way that the music comes in.
Yeah, they use sound design really, really well in that movie. And I mean, just in the first 10 minutes, you're really being thrown right into it as well. Like, the main character at that point has already dealt with a lot of very, very intense grief, and he's to the point where he doesn't even feel safe to leave his house. And um, yeah, it's really uncomfortable just to even watch those first 10 minutes, knowing that this is something that really could happen to anyone. And just the reality of being so terrified of leaving your house after something such as being jumped and mugged and hospitalized, at no fault of your own, and having no control over that. It was really surprising to me to watch that so early in the film. I thought that would have been more of a climax, if anything. And then, yeah, they really throw you right into it. And watching this character kind of go from someone who obviously does not even believe in himself at all, or views himself as like a very weak person, to watching him become this very proud um, and strong person. It's a really cool watch, and they do it in a way that I haven't really seen in modern film as well. It was a really unique way, because I find when a lot of these films now try to use these, or like try to touch on these very important and these very important themes, they also kind of try to make it very showy in terms of like the picture. They try to use these very interesting techniques and the camera angles. There's a lot going on top of just this really big, intense one theme, where art of self-defense actually it's very plain. There's not a lot going on when it comes to cinematography.
No, there's not. I get the very sense of it being like a very indie tone throughout the film.
Yeah,
The very limited amount of scenery, I guess, and what you're shown in terms of space. It all seems very quiet, except for the people who are directly within the shot and all that stuff. There's no like busy, like a busy office or anything. It's very quiet, subdued. So you're only mainly focusing on the characters that are there that are talking, and the back and forth with all those things. And like you say, there is a lot of masculinity being thrown around, of like it's subversing the female lead, for example, Hannah, who's kind of never going to be a man because she's a woman, basically, to get a black belt and all that kind of stuff. And it's just, yeah, it's not very pleasant the way that it comes across.
yeah. It really is, like, unpleasant is a very good word to use in that sort of context, because yeah, just watching it, I was kind of shaking my head, and just thinking, it's like, wow, this is disgusting. But also, I know that that sort of stuff happens very often still, and it's
Yeah, still. I do like the whole fact of, like, like, character, what's he called, Casey, isn't he? Which is again referred to as a very womanly name a number of times
Yeah.
through the thing. And then, like, I want to learn French, which again he mentioned, oh, that's, the French are weak and they surrender, so learn German instead, and all that kind of stuff to, and getting this character's very easily manipulated in and he's kind of like, he just goes along with it, and it's like, there are people who are easily swayed by other people's opinions, I guess.
Yeah. There was one scene like halfway through the movie that really stood out to me as well, and it was when they were it was, I think, after his first night class at this karate studio, and he was doing a cool down, and he kind of gets dragged to the side to the women's locker room,
Yeah.
which is literally just this place's boiler room with one locker on.
Yeah.
And the teacher, the sensei, is like, "Oh, I'm sorry that you have to be the one to do this and cool down with a girl, but everyone had to do it at some point, and that's just part of this initiation." And then Imogen Potts' character says something like, "Oh, I'm sorry that my hands aren't as strong as a man's," and I was just like, what? I was just kind of shocked that like that was just kind of portrayed so casually in this film. Like, she had kind of just accepted that, because it's been kind of built into her through her time at this studio. And
Just in, drilled into, like, you can't, this is how it is, you can't do anything about it, kind of.
But you could sense as well there was a side of her which it did anger her, because obviously she did resent the guy that had got the black belt, which obviously she was more worthy of that black belt. And obviously I'm going to be definitely on her drum, beating her drum and saying, you go for it, you a strong woman that can, obviously.
Yeah.
And she could have taken anybody out of that karate club if she wanted to.
Yeah,
absolutely. But she knew her place, which was
sort of the wrong thing to do in this instance.
Yeah.
It was cool because right after that scene where she obviously didn't get the black belt, she immediately proved to everyone that she should have been the one to get it, which is really cool as well. Even though she is kind of seen as the weaker person in this story, she knows that's not the case about herself, and obviously Casey does as well, and she wants to prove that. And I just thought that was a really cool thing for her to do. She kind of proved a point, and immediately then went back to just being this very weak viewed person because of how this dojo has made her out to be. And it was really interesting because I don't really see that in a lot of modern film, at least portrayed in that way. So it was cool to watch and kind of see Imogen Potts kick some guys, just kick some guys' ass, and just do what she does best, which is probably better than anyone else at that studio. So I thought that was a really cool little sequence as well, just to kind of prove she is a very powerful person, and I think her character really needed that sort of arc in that mid story. Otherwise, I don't know if she could have ever gotten out of that.
No, I'm not sure, but noticed obviously I think it's probably because of the old the colour belts that they have, but the colour seems to play a strong part in the film, because I noticed on the scenery there's a lot of yellows.
I think the main character.
Yeah, he's kind of like, once he gets the yellow belt, everything.
Every colour he wears is yellow.
He buys yellow belt specifically for him, and then he buys yellow food, wears a yellow t-shirt, and it just becomes more prominent throughout the thing, because like noticing that a lot more. I don't tend to notice things with colour that being that prominent in the background, but again, I think it's because of the whole thing, the dojo with the karate, and you get your certain belts, and that seemed to strike out a lot more in this film.
Yeah, it was really cool. Just because Jesse Eisenberg's character Casey, like, he was like, for the first half of the movie, viewed as a very weak character, or a feminine character, because of his name, because of he was jumped and he just felt really helpless. And as soon as he started getting these belts, you could see his confidence shift a lot, and he was very proud of that. And I think it was because of how proud he was, where like these colors started coming into play a lot more. Everything he bought was yellow, and everything he wore is yellow, and then he got the yellow belt so he could wear his yellow belt every single day at work and everything. And that was really interesting. And probably one of the funniest things in that movie as well, I think. Um, Especially when uh, he gives the box of like colored belts to the sensei. And he's like, "Oh, I made you a special belt, sensei. It's black. It's literally just a
Yeah,
regular belt."
exactly like you just who have never seen a black belt before, which you, and a brown belt as well, which you can probably get quite easily. But
It was really funny just because all like so many times through the movie, characters would come up to him. He's like, they're all like, we love these belts. Now I can wear, and now I can be a brown belt all day, or now I can be a black belt all day and show, where I am in this karate journey of mine. And I just thought that was so funny because, man, I wear a black belt every day. Like, it's not that special, but yellow, oranges, blues, I mean, sure, but black and brown I thought was so funny. Just because, yeah, there's not anything that special about that when, I mean, at the end of the day, like, the black belt is the most special belt there is, I guess. So it was cool, the way that they kind of used that. And yeah, color played a huge part in that as well. Just kind of like watching him kind of go to his really boring office job wearing a yellow belt and everything and having people stare at him, I thought was really cool because, even that kind of shows that he grown at least a little bit of self-confidence back after being jumped, because that's something that you'd probably get stared at, especially in a boring office job. So I thought that was kind of cool to watch as well.
Funnily enough, one of the other things we noticed kind of after the fact when we were reflecting on the film was that how very similar it is in a way, because on our last review we did a review on Fight Club, and we kind of got similar vibes from this as well.
Absolutely, yeah. There's definitely some Fight Club vibes there.
I think for me as well personally was the on the nightclub, like with the Fight Club on the evening, that I'm a bit of a anything gory, like, so like from Fight Club I was like got my book and I was like covering my face because it's like, oh, it's gruesome, I can't stand it. And then the first scene I'm thinking, okay, I can see that this is now got a bit dark compared to the daytime karate kind of club. But then the first, literally, he gets the other guy that is like his friend, the blue belt.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, there's something going to happen to him and I don't know what's going to happen to him. So I'm like emotionally preparing myself because I can tell just by like the lighting, the tone of the way that they're talking, it's like, yeah, the nightclub is just, if I was invited, I would not go.
Yeah.
It'd be like, the first time I'd entered that room, I'd be like, right, get me out of there completely.
Yeah, and then obviously he ends up breaking his arm.
Oh.
So it's like, oh.
I'd be terrified. I would run right out of that building. I could not do that. Absolutely not.
Definitely, yeah.
Why he goes back though, that's the thing, because he's a vulnerable accountant, which I always feel sorry for him because I work in finance, and the accountants always get given the bad time of like, oh, well, you're so like tight with money, you won't let us do anything. And it's like, and he's so kind of vulnerable and insecure. You can kind of sense that from him on the first shot. Like, he's wearing grey, he's quite dull and drab.
Yeah.
And you can see that it is like preying on the vulnerable a bit with this karate club that they've got.
Yeah, it's really cool, the way that they kind of do a lot of those things. It's a movie that doesn't really have a lot of explanatory dialogue at the end of the day. Like, they tend to explain a lot of like who these characters are through lighting and through color a lot more than they do actual dialogue, which I find really interesting. That's kind of like my style of directing as well. I like showing instead of telling. So I really like when movies do that, and this did that quite well.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of obsessiveness of this for this character when it comes to the fighting. Again, that's what sort of Fight Club was about as well. The whole, he's entirely dedicated to this karate class.
Taken over his world, hasn't it? Really, he loses his job because of this, and that happens in Fight Club as well.
Yeah,
but at least there's not the kind of mental state of mind. Yeah,
in a sense, but yeah. Do you happen to know? Because I was trying to research, because obviously they've got like VHS tapes and things in the film and other things that are very old style. Do you know when the film was actually supposed to be set?
Oh, I actually don't know like when it's actually supposed to be set, but just based on a lot of like the vehicles that were being driven, and just kind of the art design and like art direction and everything, I would probably guess early 2000s to maybe like late 90s. Um, that's kind of my guess, but I actually have no idea when it's supposed to be set. Which is interesting because I actually hadn't really thought about that all too much. And I guess that is a very prominent thing in the movie as well. Like there is a lot of very dated appliances in Casey's apartment.
That was one of the things I kind of noted, because otherwise you would have thought it was a fairly normal, like modern day time this was happening. But it's when you see the way the style of the decor in the rooms and all
The
that
computer
stuff as well. Because I was sort of thinking, hang on a minute, that's a very old computer.
Yeah,
and the tape recorder as well, like the
Yeah.
video recorder when he was filming.
Yeah, watching the films back and all that stuff, and it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, so maybe it's a clash between the two. I don't know if that was maybe a stylistic choice that the director went for, but
I think it does like definitely lend itself just being dated and everything as well, because I view this as a very dramatized way to kind of explain toxic masculinity. But if we're looking at it in the sense of like how kind of horrible this sort of stuff was like even 20 years ago compared to how it is now, it does actually make a lot of sense, and a lot more sense, especially with some of the dialogue that's been delivered. um, like Art of Self-Defense has always been one of those movies for me where I'm watching it and I don't actually know if I should be laughing or not. It's kind of, oh, that was a really bad thing to say, but you're saying it in this kind of like humoristic kind of context. Should I laugh? Should I not? And I guess it does actually make sense for it to be dated. So, in my opinion, it probably is more of a like more than just a stylistic choice, which would be interesting to look at a little bit more. I actually have no idea. I would be curious to read about that when it actually is set, because I have no clue actually.
yeah, okay. I thought I'd ask the question just in case I was missing something, but yeah, no, that's fine. One of the other thing I noticed I kind of found funny about the fact the whole persona behind the sensei being all kind of like all about masculinity, and there was the one scene particularly near the end where he's opening up the dojo, and then he's doing like what I sort of guess deem as womanly chores. Like he's vacuuming the floor and cleaning the toilets and stuff. And then the fact that it's revealed that his natural name is Leslie, which is again a very feminine-ish name. So it's kind of maybe he's kind of just trying to mask his masculinity to be a bit more subversive in that regard.
Definitely, yeah. It's yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the dialogue in that scene where Casey's like, "Isn't that right, Leslie?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's right. I know your name. It's even more feminine than Casey." And I just thought that was really cool because like you kind of, even though it's a really horrible and toxic relationship between the sensei and Casey, um, I think the sensei really does view Casey as a prodigy or someone that he could kind of groom to take over this dojo, or even just be one of his teachers and everything. And when, like, at the very end of the movie, when he does say that and he says the sensei's actual name is Leslie and it's even more feminine than Casey, you can see the power shift and everything as well. And for the first time in the movie, the sensei really did come off as vulnerable, which I thought was really cool. Something that, again, just with so little dialogue, you're able to tell so much about this person. Being able to show instead of tell is something that this movie does so well, and I love that. So, yeah, that scene was really cool to me. And then obviously the final fight between Casey and
Yeah, I did laugh at that because it kind of, I guess I don't know if you've seen like there's like a Monty Python sketch that's sort of very sort of similar with how to defend yourself from a banana or something, and then someone runs at somebody and then they shoot a gun at them to to subdue the person. So it's kind of like it's very parallel with that. So I kind of find that funny.
And I find it really funny as well because the entire movie they're talking about how guns are for the weak, and this sensei being able to punch or kick so hard with their fist that it just pokes a hole through them and kills them instantly, and it's so obvious through it. Like watching it back after seeing it once or twice, it's very obvious to me that this original sensei definitely just shot someone. Like he didn't hand-to-hand combat. So I just thought that was so funny at the end where I was just like, oh, he was talking about just shooting someone that entire time, and that's exactly what Casey did, and that's really funny. Like that was a really smart idea, I thought, and I laughed very hard at that scene after watching it, and then that kind of final dialogue that Casey has, where he's kind of giving Imogen Potts' character the black belt and everything like that. I thought that was so cool, and the dog that he was speaking to in Russian, that was also lovely.
Yeah.
I think it's quite apt how actually he's manipulated Casey into this character and this person that he is, and actually now with the training that he's somewhat done in the background of morphing this person's confidence, building them up, is actually kind of backfired on him in a sense, because obviously it's like a toxic kind of relationship. You've got like a father figure somewhat kind of trying to look after him, make him grow, but at the same time the way that he's doing it is just so cruel and manipulative, and it's like it actually he does deserve everything he gets at the end of the film. But I was still quite shocked. You laughed, didn't you? And I looked at you like, why are you laughing? He's just shot this man in the head.
It's just the way that it was done that was
I didn't see it actually coming. I'm thinking, oh my god, he's going to die. He's going to die because he's literally, there's no comparisons here. He's obviously going to be weaker.
What's better than,
Well, and I did notice as well, they kind of did seem, so for us Brits, it's a bit strange to see a gun kind of like just going into a shop.
And just being freely able to just go and buy one almost right off the shelf almost, yeah.
Oh yeah. I rewatched this movie again recently, and I just was shaking my head and being like, wow, it's crazy that that's just possible to do, and like no questions. It's like, oh yeah, we'll run a background check and you can come buy this gun in like a month.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, that's way too easy. Like you shouldn't be able to do that.
Even on the phone call they had, the guy was like, Casey was like, no, I don't need a gun anymore, and he's like, are you sure?
Have you got kids now or something?
Yeah, and then, well, have you got a knife now to protect you, because that's even worse? Yes. You should have a gun. And it's like advertising to actually have
they're
promoting the gun.
Yeah. It was really, that was a really interesting thing, and that was something that we don't really see that side of film a lot either. Like I can't really think of a lot of movies where they kind of walk into a gun shop and kind of go through the actual process of doing the background checks and everything like that. Like that's like, because like even like Hollywood specifically has definitely made it seem very accessible, and boom, everyone has a gun and it's hiding, and a lot of people, I'm sure, like it's not that easy or realistic to get one, but then you watch a scene like that and I'm just like, huh, is it really just that easy to get one in America? Who really knows? And it was kind of shocking to me. So yeah, it's an interesting point to bring up with the gun and everything. And oh yeah, a knife is worse, and you're more likely to die if you also have kids in a gun or something like this. And just his speech was not very inspiring as to why you should not own a gun. It was very inspiring as to why you should a lot of the time. It was very it was a really weird side to watch, and that was one of those scenes where I was like, wow, should I be laughing at this, or is this actually a very topical issue that we should actually be talking about more seriously? So I don't know, it was really, it was a weird one to watch. That entire movie, it's full of a lot of things I just don't really see a lot in like just Hollywood like movies, or even movies that are based in the States, because I think it's LA that it takes place. I can't really remember though, which is again like a very large populated place that is very good at making things seem a lot better than they might be. So it's cool to see this sort of side of it, which we don't really get to see a lot. I thought that was a really fun thing to do.
No, you definitely, yeah. Is there any more points you want to do before wrapping up to scoring stuff?
I've said, weirdly, I kind of knew, I don't know how I knew, that the Karate Club, it was kind of like a money-making scheme, like prey on the vulnerable, attack the vulnerable. If they don't die, they'll walk past the karate shop and they'll be like, I need to self-defense now. And it's kind of like their own way of marketing, in a sense, to get the kind of people to join their lessons. And that was like a little bit of a case of they were building up this class, and then obviously people had background issues, which then would join this bike club to then kind of repeat the same thing that's just happened to themselves. If you get else, so they're inflicting in that pain.
So it's like almost culty in that sense. Yeah.
And I think that was a Fight Club kind of feel again for me. And I was a bit like, I'm not sure. I don't know if it's more the dark humour. I'm one for a very, very good happy ending. Paul will know this if it. So I was sat there like, I'm happy with the fact that Anna got a black belt.
Yeah.
That was well deserved, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of the right way to have it end, and I think it ended on a good note. To say that, he deserved to die.
Yeah.
So I think
for sure
it was quite. I think I ended up, after watching the film, we both kind of looked at one another, didn't we? And I was like, I'm not really sure where to start with what with what to say, and not in a negative way, but it was more like it took you on a bit of a roller coaster of emotions. I felt throughout.
I guess that's what the film was going for.
And honestly, like, I actually don't even know if there was just one climax throughout that movie. It kind of it's really calm for like 20 minutes, and then it's just a nightmare, and then it's really calm for like 20 more minutes, and then this is happening, and then it's really calm for like 40 minutes, and then it's just a nightmare for the last like hour of the movie, or like 30 minutes of the movie or something. And I was like, I don't even know how to feel. It keeps making me think that everything's going to be okay, and then it's even worse, and then it's fine again, and I kind of forget about this really bad thing, and then it reminds me of another really bad thing, and I was kind of watching it, and I'm just like, it was really good, but also I don't even know where to start thinking and how to dissect this movie, because there were just so many things that happened, and so many ups and downs. I really didn't know how to feel by the end of the movie. I was like,
I was exactly the same, because I didn't know, like, you were like, what did you think? And I'm like, I actually just don't know how I feel. And I'm not actually kind of, I think the only other film that's made me feel a bit like that was Shutter Island. I was a bit like, I did not see this coming. I do not know how I feel with the ending or any of the actual film that I've just watched, because I've just watched a lie, basically.
Yeah.
And and I think sometimes you feel like when you're watching it, you do feel a little bit betrayed by the actual movie. So I think that was like when you're sitting there and you're like, I do not know, and you're looking at me like, well, and I'm like, I didn't have a clue what to say. But not in a bad way.
Yeah, not in a bad way for sure, but like I felt the exact same, honestly. I think my last thought of that movie was, should I feel happy that he just murdered the sensei? Like, do we celebrate that, or I should feel bad, right? Like, I actually had no idea by the end if I should be rooting for these people and who I should be rooting for and what's a success. And at the end of the day, like, what's really like not a great thing. And I don't know, there were just so many ups and downs. I really I've seen the movie so many times now, and I still don't even really know how I feel if it was.
I'm always for the character who's the weak character who gets a comeuppance in the end. So I'm always kind of feeling like it was a victory for him in the end, because I kind of see
that's a British thing. That
seeing a bit of myself in him, I guess, in a way.
We love an underdog, though, don't we? Yeah. Anybody who's an underdog, we will definitely back them. Yeah. So I think that's a thing for us where we're like, he did get his comments, and it's a case of well triumphed in a sense, because really he should have, if you looked at the scenario, if they were going to actually do the genuine fight,
he would not win.
He would not win.
He was smart enough to do, break the rules, so to speak, and
hard to say for sure. And I thought that was really cool.
Right, so we'll go to scores. So Nick, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah. Okay. So, like, out of 5, out of 10, what are we doing here?
We normally do it out of 10.
Okay.
So, but you can go if you prefer to do out of 5. That's absolutely up to you. It's whatever your scoring system is, I guess.
I'll do it out of 10. I just think I give it a solid 9. Just because it is a movie that I do think has a lot of rewatchability, which is something when I am rating movies, I think is really important. I think I'm going to give it a higher rating if I can actually, have some rewatchability there. So a 9 because it has a lot of rewatchability, because it's really smart, and it's really funny as well in a very dark way. And that's just kind of my humor, I guess. You watched Family Game Night, so you know that. But
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, like I give it a solid 9. I think it's one of the better indie films I've seen in a very long time, for sure.
Yeah, so I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I did enjoy the thing. I kind of black comedy humor is kind of my thing, so I definitely got something out of that. And like throughout the film, there's these moments where it's kind of like, yeah, that's just how it works. It just makes sense to have that kind of tone to it, that almost dry tone with the way it's delivered, and it's quite unique in how it uses like the music, to how the characters are interacting with each other, and it's sort of the limited space that they're working in, and it all just kind of works out well. And I think from what you've described in your thing, it's definitely probably worth a rewatch to maybe soak in a little more from it. So Sophie.
I might not be scoring it as highly as you two, possibly, but I think that's more for my humour and how I felt afterwards. I was like, I don't know if I can put myself through that anytime soon yet again, just because I was like, I just don't know how I feel. And normally I'm quite vocal, aren't I, on how I feel. And I was just like, I literally don't know if I'm happy or if I'm sad. I literally just don't feel much. And not because of the fact that the film was shockingly rubbish. It wasn't. It was the fact that the film made you feel so bad about thinking about something that should be somewhat good. It wasn't like a define of good or bad. It was kind of playing tricks on your brain, I felt. Within that, though, that doesn't mean there wasn't good content within the movie. And there was good characterization. Like I did like Casey and I did like Anna. And I feel like they were quite solid characters for me. Have you noticed I've always picked the nice ones?
Yeah.
So I'd probably say a solid 7 for me.
Okay.
I think as well, with the fact that they do highlight women obviously being kind of the weaker, not in a bad way, because obviously that is something that does happen, and it's not that it's something we should shun on, but it's like eventually she does get her upcomings, really.
Yeah.
But in a way that you're like, does she deserve it? Doesn't she? And I think it's that thin lining of messing with your mind that makes me think, I don't know if I want to watch that straight away again tomorrow.
Yeah, I took a solid maybe like 4 or 5 month break in between my first and second watch. It's pretty heavy. I couldn't just watch that back to back 2 nights in a row. It's a big no from me. I needed more of a buddy comedy after that, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think we've actually done, I did say to Paul, done some quite intense films lately, and I'm one all for a happy ending. And like they fall in love and they get whisked away, and
or something along those lines.
What have we had? We've had Fight Club, which was but I knew what was coming on that one.
Yeah, you did.
We've had King of Comedy. What else have you thrown at me lately?
Well, Shutter Island a while back. Again, these things that are kind of like very heavy on like the mental state of people.
I was fuming with the Shutter Island one. I still don't think it's right.
Yeah, Shutter Island's a very cool movie. It's definitely like a very big manipulative movie in terms of like how it makes you feel and what you see. And I actually rewatched that one recently myself as well, like maybe a month or so ago. I watch it maybe like once a year, maybe once every two, because it is very interesting from like a filmmaking point of view. But yeah, it's a heavy watch. I can't do that often.
So, what is your outcome? I know we should be. I just want to, out of interest, with Shutter Island, do you think that he is kind of? Oh, I forgot the name now. Teddy, or is he actually the inspector? Or do you actually, in the end? Because I was really, really like, I didn't believe it that he was Teddy. I still don't, and I don't know if that's just me being ever the optimist.
I think he is. I think he is Teddy. Yeah, it's just knowing who's behind that movie and like who's involved with that project. Yeah, it's definitely the worst option of the two. Definitely, that's kind of where my mind goes.
I was like literally trying to convince you, wasn't I? Like, no, he's definitely the inspector.
Yeah.
He still ended up having a lobotomy, and that's what he was going to figure out and undercover. And he was right with everything that he said, though.
Yeah,
he wasn't wrong. That's the thing that kind of. But I didn't see it coming at all, did I? Not one bit. With Fight Club, I'd got wise. I think I'd.
You're catching on to these.
Yeah.
In-depth things now. So, yeah.
Because we'll be honest, my viewing isn't that much, is there really?
No, that's why we set up doing this podcast in the first place, because it says I've seen a lot of films and Sophie hasn't seen a lot of them. I feel like she's missing out on some of these very deep
I think
dives of.
Well, my background is literally my mum and dad split up from when I was 13 years old, and then there was a house of three women, and all we used to watch was rom-coms and such. And
for me, it was all Disney movies, so I'm there with you. Yep.
That would literally be it. There'd be no branching out. Any action film you gave me, I wouldn't be interested, would I?
No.
And then you put me through all the
Avengers, Marvel, all that stuff. Yeah. Now we're.
Yeah, for me it was whenever I was with my mom, it was like Disney movies and little cartoons with my little brothers, and then when I was with my dad, I would get like classic Godzilla and like Power Rangers and Star Wars. So I did have both, but it was very there were some polar opposites there. There was nothing really in the middle. I didn't really like comedy movies. It was either give me absurd sci-fi or give me just something fun and cartooned.
Oh, good.
So I'm there with you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we'll leave it there for now. So thank you very much, Nick, for joining us.
I've really enjoyed it, and thank you for picking the film, even though it messed with my head.
No, yeah, it was a good experience, to say the least.
Yeah, I'm glad that you guys both enjoyed it. I mean, a 7's still a pretty high rating. I still think that's pretty good, and I think that's worth celebrating. And yeah, no, thank you again for having me. I love talking about films, so I'm very happy that we got to do this, especially when it's a film that I do very much enjoy. So yeah, I really appreciate the time, guys.
Yeah, no, we'd love to have you on again at some point down the line. Have you got any thing like you got Twitter or anything to plug or anything like that?
Yeah, of course. So Twitter is just Nick Ferwerda, NickFerwerda, and that's also the same for my Instagram. I do photography, a lot of like dark, gritty film style stuff as well. So if that's something that anyone wants to check out, my Instagram handle is the exact same as my Twitter. And that's about it for social media. And then obviously you can watch my stuff on Amazon Prime, either searching Family Game Night or even my name. It comes up if you search it. So I'd love for anyone to check that out.
That's brilliant. I'll definitely check out your photography, because I actually studied that in university. So I love photography to bits.
Yeah. I love my photography. I shoot all like 35 millimeter and medium format. I don't shoot digital, so it still has that very gritty look as well. Again, I guess I like spooky things. So,
I loved the dark room. That was my favorite place to be.
Me too. It's still one of my favorite places.
So we are SP Film Viewers. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter under the handle SP Film Viewers. And you can listen to us on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, and wherever else you might get podcasts from. Anything else to add, Sophie, before we wrap up?
Nope, that's everything, I think.
Yes, so thank you once again, Nick.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
And we'll speak to you next time.
Speak to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Yep, bye now.